Julie Eng is magical in so many ways. She's a true Wonder Woman. Her magic beginnings started at infancy. Julie's father was respected Canadian magician Tony Eng. Julie grew up learning and performing magic side by side with her father. Magic is in her DNA, and she's used her remarkable skills, skill set, and heritage to champion magic as an art form. Julie is the Executive Director of Magicana, where she wears multiple hats and executes every task expertly. Julie is respected, beloved, and one of Magic's most valuable assets. Her life, her experiences, and her journey are truly unique, and we are thrilled to speak with Julie today. Julie, can you tell them a little bit about Magicana and the projects that you work with?
I'd love to. Magicana is an arts organization here in Toronto. It's one of a kind, and the arts organization's mandate is to advance the idea of magic as a performing art, just for everybody, for magicians, for the public, for anyone who wants to have an idea of what magic is. Let me talk to you. So we do it in many different ways, but one of our core activities are our community outreach programs that are based here in Toronto, and they serve opposite ends of this age spectrum. My Magic Hands are for children, and Senior Sorcery is for seniors in resident care. So the children's program was born out of this idea of kids should learn magic. Well, yeah, it's always fun. Kids can learn it, but if we could build things like self-esteem, self-confidence, if we can build a little bit of a personality so they're not afraid to get in front of people. And we started working with groups that were at a little more at what we would say at risk. So there were some groups that worked in pocketed areas of Toronto where it's deemed as, stereotypically dangerous or low income and all of these awful, ugly labels. These are kids, they just want to do something. So magic is not only affordable, but it's inside. So you're not buying an instrument, for example. The idea of taking a pack of cards and being able to create something very unique and I guess magical, that was a really interesting, mind-blowing opportunity for a lot of young people. They never occurred to them, right? That they could be someone of this offering, someone who could provide a service or entertainment in this way. So it's not that it was power, but it was this idea of self-esteem. There is a person there that can offer something, and that was really powerful. We then took that and we brought that to working with children's hospitals, and Holland Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation here in Toronto is one of the top rehabilitation hospitals in the world. And we're very lucky that we have sick kids here in Toronto and Holland Bloorview, and we got to work with the occupational therapists there. And we were working with some really interesting kids with some very, very, very significant challenges, like super, super challenging problems that they were overcoming. And the great part was occupational therapists have to teach children how to button their shirts, being very self-sufficient with, let's say, stacking cups. You can see where this is all going, right? Maybe, working on, of course, printing, handwriting, or, you want to be adept at the computer. Well, you have to have hand dexterity. You have to have hand strength. Some of these kids suffered from injuries that prohibited a lot of things we take for granted. Well, magic allowed them to explore that therapy in a really fun way. And I was really gratified because they would want to get the magic so much that they would push past the pain and the discomfort and the boredom of repetition, like from practicing, that they would do this because they wanted the magic.
Right.
If an occupational therapist asks them to stack cups, forget it.
Yeah.
But you tell them you put a little ball here and you snap your fingers, the ball penetrates, they would do it 100 times over. It's over and over. And we built magic as a recreation program, but it was really around occupational therapy. And it was such a joy for me because I came in not as the therapist, I came in as this magician. So they were like, well, what is she doing? And how did she do it? And it was just this classic child curiosity.
Yeah.
And then they started to really trust me.
Mm-hmm.
And I would make big promises to them. I said, we're going to do a show together. So at the end of 8 weeks, we had to do a show together.
Yes.
And I guaranteed them the magic would work. So that was a big promise. That was always a scary promise. So I held my breath at every single show, and I've done this for over 15 years now. And they have yet to disappoint me. Every single show, the kids show up, they blow away the parents in the audience. They blow away their occupational therapists who've been watching them along their journey.
Right.
Because when you get in front of an audience for real, no matter how much you practiced, how much you've rehearsed, the idea that these kids would get like 100 people showing up at their show, and they were doing learning close up. So we had a camera on them, so it would be projected on these big screens.
Right.
The kids could experience what that sensation of performing for a large group could feel like, and the gratification of having done that well.
Yeah, and the power that the power and the confidence that it gives them, because when you execute magic correctly and you feel the audience's sense of wonder, that I call it the magic gasp, then you've succeeded. And I mean, for these poor children that have gone through so much, to give them that power, Julie, that's just beautiful. Are you enjoying this talk with Julie Eng? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notifications bell.
It's inspiring for me. You know, some of my magician friends were saying to me, "Oh, I could never do that. You know, the poor kids." I'm like, "Are you kidding? These kids, they push past everything. They teach me so much." And we have a lot of restrictions and limitations based on their challenges. So we have to come up with other ways. I had one student in particular, I remember he was this vibrant 16-year-old, a natural leader to this group, but he was in a terrible car accident. He lost his arm and his leg. So he's very singular sided in that ability. And I'm like, okay, you know, it's like, I can't hide the fact that he has one hand. So I said, all right, let's do it. We'll figure out how to do it. And we would work out other ways of magic. He wanted to do this one card trick. I said, no problem. Let's figure this out. And he was 16, so he's a little more diligent about the problem solving with me. And we worked out this beautiful routine. Magicana ended up buying Renee Levin's book for him to give it to him because we wanted to inspire him. I was just
thinking of Renee because he's the perfect example, you know.
So I showed these guys some of the videos. I said, because I don't always do that because I don't want to intimidate the children, right. But Renee is such a great example of dignified magic persona with elegant magic. It can be done. And this is a guy who's been doing it for a long time. So I was really very gratified that this 16-year-old really saw the opportunity here. And he could have disappeared into his own world and no one would have had said otherwise, because it was such a difficult experience to be a vital young man and then to be popped into this wheelchair with a really, really, really big change in his life. Right. And I'm sure he went through ebbs and flows of this, but he always got it together on all our sessions. He was just like really inspiring to me to be more creative, to come up with more things. We worked on some mind reading stuff with a friend of his, which was really funny because they could basically, you know, do some magic together. And that was like, they saw ability, they saw power, you know, they saw this ability to go further than where they are. And that was early on in my experience. And it has obviously stayed with me this entire time, because kids are miraculous. They come up with stuff all the time. I love working with children.
Yeah. So, and they see things sometimes because your dad's always done it this way and you've always done it this way. You do it this way. And then all of a sudden they'll do something completely on the left and you'll go, wait a minute, that worked. And I've discovered that with cast members that aren't magicians, that, you know, they've completely executed it incorrectly. And yet it's
but maybe it's not.
You know, you're like, wait a minute, we better reconsider that. Can you do that again? You know,
that's exactly it. That's exactly it. It was precisely that I had learned it one way because my father had done it this way. So this is how I do it. But that's not the only way. And then working with the kids have explored all of these opportunities. And I think there was a huge advantage in being a woman inside of this particular program, because I'm just smaller in stature right off the top. I'm not as big and tall as the other guys. I'm a little bit closer to their size, their height, their hands. You know, in other words, if I can do it, you can do it. And they saw that. they didn't see that as a block. Oh, it's an adult, and all of those sort of classic problems that some of the kids faced.
Right.
But I think that there's a deep, I mean, I love children, so I think they resonated right away with my energy.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of, I have a somewhat maternal instinct with a lot of people, and children in particular. I want to see them grow. I want to see them advance. I want to see them change. And okay, you have challenges, but they saw that I didn't see that as a problem. It's just a challenge. We just have to get over that hurdle.
There's a
And
solution.
they really took to that. I found that to be most heartening for me, is that you treat children. My father taught me this right off the top when I started my children's shows. You need to respect your audience, and children are your audience. So you respect those kids. 5 years old are your audience. So you need to treat them with the utmost respect. And I always did, because that's what I saw in my father.
Right.
And it paid in spades for me, because I think that respect that I brought to the children, they then mirrored back to me. And we built a lot of trust inside, that we would do crazy things for these kids where they felt vulnerable. Right. Crazy in the sense that they were putting themselves out there, really
out of their comfort zone. Yeah.
Exposing themselves in a way that they had every right not to feel safe in. And they trusted me enough that I said, if we do this and we practice enough, that this will work. And I promised them it will, because I would watch like a hawk to make sure all the steps were followed so that it would work. But they knew that if they did everything in order, or however way we practiced it, it would work. And that's, for me, that kind of idea that, yeah, it's scary, but if you think about the gap and you fill in the steps to that gap, all of a sudden it's just doing the steps. It's not a gap.
Right.
And that's, that's how I've always approached magic. I don't know how I'm going to do that yet, but let's think about that. I'm always saying that. Well, let's think about that. What does that look like?
To do? How can we do it?
It's got to start somewhere.
Right. Exactly.
So the kids program is a absolute and complete passion of mine. And the senior sorcery program is very similar. It's not a teaching program, though. It's a performing program, but bringing magic into the homes of residents is where it's like a Groundhog Day, where every day you don't know, the days of the week because of dessert, right? Oh, it's rice pudding day. It's chocolate pudding day. Okay, it's carrot cake today. Like that's how they defined their days. So when we would blow in with the magic show, we'd roll in this trolley with all kinds of gear and boxes and what's that? Yeah. So the show begins the second you open through the door.
Yeah. And
you set up a show, and we brought live theater, but unlike the other live entertainment that they had, we engaged the audience. And a lot of the coordinators are a little worried about that. Well, our residents, because it can be very introverted, in their own shell, very, very secluded, isolated.
Yeah.
And I, again, felt so gratified, because they couldn't have the strength or the ability to applaud, but they would make an effort so you knew they got it, or they appreciated it, with a sparkly eye, a gentle nod, a smile. It goes a long ways. And for me, that's better than a standing ovation, because I broke past a very difficult shell that they couldn't always engage with. And I found that I often sat with the group afterwards, so tea or something like this. And it was really rewarding for me to hear about their stories, where they first saw magic, how they used to entertain. I used to go to the Veterans Hospital, so I would hear, I'd have so much fun listening to their stories, because this was the entertaining group, mostly from the USO kind of shows, that kind of a group. And so they were natural performers, and they loved coming to the show. It was always so much fun for me. So the pandemic has definitely changed our access to both of the programs. So that's been extremely challenging, because I don't believe I can bring the same magic across the screen.
No, not in those two situations, because you really need to be there hands-on.
I think that's part of the end. That's my strength, is my presence of personality and energy. And I try very hard to work with that, and with students across screens and stuff like that. But there is something to be said for the children, it's the hand-on-hand learning, where we can sit and work together. That's part of part of the experience. And for the seniors, it's about being in their space and breaking that fourth wall with a live presence of energy. it's difficult, but we will just keep pressing on and finding opportunities and ways to do this.
Did you enjoy this Magical Women Talk? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notifications bell so you'll be aware of future Magical Women Talks. Oh, and don't forget to comment. We love to hear from you.